I was halfway through unloading lumber from my truck when a patrol car pulled up to my driveway. The morning sun had barely risen, the air thick with sawdust sweat and anticipation. I'd waited years to start this home office edition, years of saving permits and planning. Everything was approved. Everything was legal. And then the HOA decided to send the police to stop me. That was the day I learned just how far they'd go to control me, and how badly that plan would backfire. Officer Daniels stepped out looking confused before his boots hit the pavement. "Morning," he said. "Got a call about unauthorized construction." I didn't even have to guess who called. From behind the hedge came Jolene Granger, HOA board secretary and full-time busybody. Clipboard in hand, sun hat tilted like she was auditioning for Suburban Dictator of the Year. "That's him, officer," she barked. "He's violating Community Standards Article 7, Section 4. I wiped my hands on my jeans. "You've been harassing me all week. I've got city approval permits and inspections lined up. Want to see the deed?" Jolene tried to cut in, but Daniels shut her down. He followed me to my truck. I handed him a folder, deed, permits, everything. His brows rose. "You own this whole lot?" "Yep," I said. "Bought the side half-acre last year, the one Jolene thinks is common area." Jolene's voice cracked. "That can't be right. The board never approved that sale." I almost laughed. "Didn't need your approval. It's called private property." Daniels closed the folder and gave me back my papers. "Everything checks out. HOA rules don't override city law." Jolene's jaw twitched like she'd swallowed a lemon. As the cruiser rolled away, I told her, "Better grab a chair, Jolene. This office is going up fast." She stormed off, heels clicking like a furious metronome. And that's when I knew the war had just started. 2 days later, a white SUV parked halfway on the curb. Out stepped Nathan Price, the HOA's so-called architectural compliance officer, wearing a polo with the HOA logo stitched over his heart like a badge of honor. He looked me over, lips pursed. "We've received a new complaint. The board has issued a cease and desist order." He handed me a letter with the HOA letterhead. "Per Community Bylaw 72, all new construction must be approved by the board." I skimmed it. "This isn't enforceable," I said. "The city already approved everything." Price straightened his shoulders. "You're mistaken. The board voted to amend the boundaries. Your side lot is now designated common land." I stared at him. "You're joking." He didn't blink. It passed unanimously. I took a step closer. "You mean the HOA voted to steal my land after I bought it from my neighbor and didn't even tell me?" He didn't flinch. "Emergency session." That phrase made my blood boil. "That's not an emergency," I said. "That's land theft." Price's lips twitched. "If you continue construction, we'll fine you $500 a day and file a lien." I laughed. "You're going to place a lien on land you don't own. Go ahead, you'll be hearing from my attorney." That night I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by blueprints, deeds, and zoning maps. My hands were shaking. For a moment I thought maybe I missed something. Maybe I built too close to the line. Maybe this was my fault. That doubt crept in like cold air through a cracked window. Was I about to lose everything over a stupid technicality? Then Denise knocked on the door. My neighbor, retired nurse, tough as nails. She handed me an envelope. This came to my house by mistake, from the HOA. I opened it. $2,000 fine for unauthorized construction plus a threat to suspend my community privileges. Denise folded her arms. "They're trying to make an example of you." That snapped me out of it. I wasn't crazy. I was being bullied. I gathered every document I owned, deed, county map, contract, and dropped them off with my lawyer, Ben. By afternoon, he'd filed a formal complaint for attempted fraudulent property claim. The HOA doubled down. Unmarked vans parked near my fence. One guy tried to take photos until I walked out with a camera of my own. He vanished. A few days later, I got a letter from the county prosecutor's office. "We are in receipt of your documentation," it said. "A preliminary investigation into misuse of organizational authority has been opened." I let out a long breath. For the first time, I felt like the tide might be turning. Saturday morning, I walked into the HOA clubhouse with a folder under my arm. Word had spread the county was investigating. The room buzzed with whispers. Jolene sat at the front clipboard, trembling in her hands. Price sat beside her, arms folded, smug as ever. I raised my hand. This board tried to reclassify my private land as common area, fined me, and threatened a lien, all based on false documents. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Price stood. That's not the full story. Ben, my lawyer, rose from the back. Actually, it is. He laid 3 papers on the table. My deed, the HOA's cease and desist letter, and an official notice from the prosecutor's office. You forged a boundary map, he said loud enough for the whole room. Gasps filled the air. And then a woman stepped forward. County investigator Alina Mendez. This isn't a misunderstanding, she said, holding up the HOA's fake map. This is fraud. 2 board members immediately backed away from the table. Jolene froze her face, drained of color. If any resident received fines based on this forged boundary, Alina continued, you should contact our office immediately. Phones came out, people snapped photos, whispered, called friends. The meeting dissolved in chaos. The HOA board sat in silence, cornered. Over the next week, the investigation spread. More neighbors came forward. Rick Vasquez fined $800 for repainting his shutters the approved color. Denise found old group chats where Jolene and Price bragged about creative enforcement against people who talked back. The DA's office opened a full inquiry. Then came the knock on my door. Assistant DA Mark Holloway. Charcoal suit, serious eyes. We've issued subpoenas, he said. If the board coordinated this knowingly, it's conspiracy and fraud. A few days later, Harold Kim, the HOA treasurer, showed up on my curb. He looked exhausted. I didn't sign those boundary votes, he said quietly. They forged my name. I have flight records. He told me Jolene had called him, warning that if he didn't play along, they'd blame him. He also mentioned others' residents threatened for petty violations. By then, the DA had uncovered 3 years of shady activity. Forged documents, false fines, threats, extortion. The HOA clubhouse was padlocked, seized for audit compliance. The next meeting was held in the high school gym. I'll never forget that scene. Hundreds of residents packed into bleachers, murmuring. Jolene sat pale and trembling. Price beside her, jaw locked. Their so-called legal advisor, Victor Rusk, scanned the crowd like a man calculating exits. A county representative, Lisa Tran, stepped up to the mic. We are conducting a criminal investigation into this board's actions, she said. Price stood abruptly. This is a witch hunt. No one's been harmed. A man in the crowd shouted back, You fined my 8-year-old for Halloween decorations. Laughter and outrage rolled through the gym. Lisa didn't flinch. We have verified forged city signatures on your documents, she said. Rusk tried to intervene. We'll file for an injunction. Lisa cut him off. No, you won't. The county has suspended your authority effective immediately. Gasps. Then silence. 3 days later, unmarked cars pulled up to Jolene's house. Officers circled back after knocking twice. Then, the sound of splintering wood the back door forced open. I stood on the sidewalk watching as they led Jolene out in cuffs. She didn't resist, didn't speak, just looked hollow clipboard, nowhere in sight. That afternoon, Price was arrested at his office. Rusk tried to deny involvement, but the DA had his memo and email detailing how to maximize HOA leverage through perception of municipal authority. It hit the 6 o'clock news before sunset. Residents who'd been silent for years started speaking up. A woman named Karina confessed she'd almost sold her house after a $5,000 fine for trimming a tree. A veteran down the street produced a recording of Price demanding donations to make violations disappear. Within days, the county froze. The HOA's accounts seized its records and charged the entire board with conspiracy, forgery, extortion, and attempted land seizure. Their power evaporated overnight. The clubhouse, the symbol of their control, was boarded up like a crime scene. I stood at my window that evening looking out at the office they tried to stop me from building. The same walls they wanted gone were now standing tall, every nail a reminder of what they couldn't take. When Officer Daniels, the same one from that first morning, ran into me at the hardware store a few weeks later, he grinned. You made the news, he said. Not many people stand up to an HOA and win. I laughed. Wasn't trying to make history. Just didn't like being lied to on my own land. He clapped my shoulder. Well, you did more than win. You set a precedent. I didn't answer. I just looked out toward Maple Creek where neighbors were finally talking again. No clipboards, no threats, no fear.